Hello, Kristina. Kristina Göransson. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel. And you already know that I use this channel to upload lectures and talk with the social researchers like you. So overall, this channel is dedicated to bring social research into limelight, particularly for the people who are laymen or who are not too much technical or academic about it. And it's also a mean to showcase what we have done as social researchers in the field to the public. Okay, you are here because I am interested in your research on parenting in Singapore. That was an ethnographic study. And you are working as a deputy head of School of Social Work, and you're associate professor, and you are a social anthropologist. This is what I know. But let us begin with your brief introduction and the background of your research on parenting in Singapore.
So, as you said, I'm a social anthropologist by training, and I have been doing ethnographic studies in East Asia with a particular focus on Singapore for 2 decades now. And for the past 4 years, I have been running a comparative research project where we are studying parents' involvement in young children's education and learning in 3 major East Asian cities, and that is Singapore, Beijing, and Seoul. So I have 2 colleagues that they have been doing fieldwork in Beijing and Seoul, and I have been responsible for the fieldwork and the analysis of the Singapore case. So that is sort of my expertise. And why we embarked on that project is because we have, all 3 of us, we have experience of conducting family research, parenting research in Asia and in these 3 field sites. And we sort of noticed the substantial amount of resources, emotions, energy that parents invest in their young children's education, and also that these activities and priorities are not always very easy to make for parents. They are faced with a lot of conflicting expectations and ideas on how to raise their children. So that was the background of this project.
Well, good. Now I will come to the point directly, because I have an interest in your article that was about intensive parenting, and it was very interesting. I will also share the link in the description of the video as well for the people who will watch this video. But I mean, before proceeding further, this word intensive parenting, intensive itself is an intensive word. So what do you think? Why you choose the title intensive parenting?
So intensive parenting is a very well-known concept in family research and in sociology and anthropology, and it is understood as a type of parenting ideology where the parent is expected to invest a lot of time, resources, emotions into their children's upbringing and well-being, and that this is a sort of identity work also on behalf of the parent. And I think the researcher who first coined the term intensive parenting was Sharon Hayes in her studies on American parenting many decades ago. But we can see expressions of intensive parenting styles everywhere. Not only in certain societies, but surely intensive parenting practices are classed. They are very much associated with a kind of middle class, the middle class category of parents, where they have the resources to do these kind of sacrifices and investment. So I am using that term, but at the same time, I also think that there are many nuances in intensive parenting practices. It's sometimes simplified in the same way as you can hear simplistic interpretation of so-called Asian parenting styles, the stereotype of the tiger mother, for example. All these are very simplistic. So that is also something we hope to do in this project, to see the complexity of it, and the contradictory discourses around parenting. But for sure, it is intensive in the sense that it's very demanding on behalf of the parent, if I put it like that.
Okay, so it is demanding on behalf of the parents. But
and the children, of course.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's also children, I mean, they can feel that their parents are demanding something in the way they want them to bring up. Is it?
Yes, I would think so. In this study, we didn't actually cover children, but I have met many children during my field studies. And of course, it's parental expectations, but there are also self-expectations and expectations from the education system. In all these 3 field sites that we were studying, the education systems are extremely competitive. It's also very common for even for young middle-class children to take extra private classes after school, not to make the pass in school, but to excel. So the expectations on academic excellence is, I think it's very present for parents, for children, in policy, in all these 3 field sites.
Yeah, I just realized that you have said that it is a classed parenting as well. I mean, there is a specific class, but it is also, it seems evident from your talk and your article as well, that this class is interested in in children education. I mean, they want to bring them into an educational capital or academic capital. So why do you think they think that education is the only way to have their children, I mean, groom in future? Yeah.
So I think what drives middle-class parents in that sense is the quest for upward social mobility. And I think in a lot of societies around the world, education is seen as a primary route to upward social mobility. And even more so maybe in these 3 field sites, where there is a strong emphasis on education from the state in education policy. And in the case of Singapore, it's quite interesting. I would say that it's also fueled by some kind of narrative of national survival, where Singapore is understood as a very small country without any natural resources other than its population. So it's a constant emphasis on the importance of human capital for the very survival of the society and its people. So I think the importance of education has been emphasized to such a degree. So even, we will come to that later, but you can see some contradictory discourses now where saying that education is not everything, but I think that has not materialized into any reality. In a sense.
Right. And it is also interesting to see that the children who are getting education in Singapore, they are able to get their place in the job market. So that's why parents are focused on their education, maybe, because in the countries where children are not able to get the jobs, do they see the same way the education as a kind of big thing for the children? What do you think? So, well, if I start from another end, I think what is happening, and now we are coming to this contradictory discourse that it has also become emerged in Singapore and in these 3 field sites, that education in itself is not enough. This is a perception of policymakers and parents, and probably children too, maybe to some degree, I don't know. But that to be able to survive in this new century, you also need other skills. So it's not, you need to have good grades, but you also need to have other skills. And that is where resilience come in. Because when I talk to parents in Singapore, the middle-class parents, now I'm referring to them, they wouldn't compromise on the education.
but they were very clear that the child also needs other skills. And resilience was one of these skills that they were emphasizing. Flexibility, creativity, social skills, more soft skills, if you put it like that. So it's a whole battery of new skills that are believed to be necessary, which has also to do with the idea of the future as a very uncertain period. And that is also, I think, reproduced from above, from the state, where they emphasize that we need to be prepared for all sorts of challenges. The future is uncertain and we cannot predict it. So therefore, everyone needs to be ready to adapt. So adaptability was also something that was emphasized a lot by parents I spoke to.
But if future is unpredictable, still they are predicting that the future will be unpredictable.
Yes. So I think that is what is really characterizing parenting, that on one hand, they have to cope with the feeling of uncertainty, but at the same time, they still need to make choices. And to make choices, you need to guess what is going to happen in the future. And I think that might even fuel intensive parenting more than if you were only emphasizing academic excellence. But now there are two sets of skills that you need to equip your child with: the education and then these other skills. Okay,
good. So what are their thoughts on resilient children? I mean, the parents' thought. What do they think? What are the resilient children that they want to make them?
So when I go through my material, when parents talk about resilience, it's usually to cope with failure, to overcome obstacles, and to persist in challenging times. I think that would be parents' understanding of what it means to have a resilient child.
You mean that they think, well, it is very much connected to their idea of uncertain future.
Yes,
so they perceive that there would be challenges for them, and then they must be prepared to face those challenges. I mean, it's just to go through them.
Exactly. So it's the idea that the child needs to grow a mindset that is resilient enough to cope with any surprising obstacles or crisis or what it might be. And of course, as I said, it's not the parents that invented the idea of the importance of these kind of skills. It's also very much present in education policy. Actually, in all these three field sites, we can see that for the past 20 years or so, the education policy has moved away from a very sort of narrow, exam-oriented notion to emphasizing what they sometimes term 21st century skills, which are social, emotional skills, creativity, flexibility, resilience, all that. So it's also something that is highly present in the policy discourse.
And are these parents themselves are resilient adults? Because, I mean, their parents have brought them into resilient adults, or what?
No, I think that these parents don't see themselves as resilient in that sense, because they went through, in their view, they went through a different education system. Things were easier. They seem to think that in the past you could study law and you could become a lawyer, and that was fine and good. But who knows whether there will be any lawyers in the future? Maybe there will be artificial intelligence to do the job of a lawyer, you know. So it seems like it also rests on a perception of the past as being more predictable, whereas the future is very uncertain, and the jobs that we used to rely on in the past might not be available anymore. So that is also something that a lot of parents pointed out. So it seems like they also feel the reality is more complex for their children than it was for them when they grew up.
But does not it look like that everything is somehow is revolving around the economic resilience? Is it?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so they just want to be a part of the economic circle where they can earn for themselves. So if you think that everything is connected to economic stability, okay, yes.
Am I correct? In a way, it is very connected to economic stability, and that is usually, it boils usually down to that. Also from the state perspective, to actually keep up in the global economy. But at the same time, there have also been more attention to mental well-being, and children's mental well-being in particular. So the social resilience also taps into that. But I would say that most of the times it still comes back to the economy in the discussions.
Yeah, I can understand that, because anyhow, it is more complex as it look like, because everything is so sharply connected to each other that even if we will say it is just about the economic stuff, maybe we will undermine the other stuff. So you think that social and scientific change is fast, as you see that their parents did not bring them up in a way that they are doing now. So you see a shift of parenting from the grandparents to the parents. Do you think that they will, I mean, it is, of course, how do you think, if I'm talking about the future, but do you think that their children, when they will become parents, they will have different parenting strategies as compared to their parents now?
I would guess so. Because I don't see the emphasis on parenting and the importance of parents disappearing. That is something that is very characteristic of contemporary parenting. The idea that parents are very necessary, and almost as if parents can determine the future of the child by their priorities and actions. So I would think so. But it's interesting also from an intergenerational perspective what happens when you have these kind of shifts. I can also see in the ethnographic material that several cases of tensions between, like you said, grandparents and parents, ideas of how a child should be raised, where grandparents sometimes emphasize really the importance of an education, and other activities are seen as not so important. And while the parents might see the other activities as important as an education.
Right. So the parents, I mean, these parents who are interested in the resilient children, they see the psychological health of the children, and they also see the economic well-being of the children, and they also see the social well-being of the children. Is it?
Yeah. And I think it's also because they are also, parents are connecting them in a way. I will give an example that was quite common, where parents, a lot of these parents, they are critical to the competitive education system, and they don't think it's very good to push children in an extreme way in school. But on the other hand, that does not mean that they would step out and sort of let the child fail academically. Because if they fail academically, the idea is that this will have a negative impact on their self-esteem. And the self-esteem is seen as an important component of, well-being and resilience.
Hmm.
So it's sort of they are feeding into one another.
Yeah. So don't you think that children may be stressed out with this, too much emphasis on making them resilient?
Mm.
Do you think that children may stress out because?
I would. I think it's a bit too early to say,
Mhm.
and it will only be speculation because I haven't studied children explicitly, but I would guess so because it's just one more skill or task that needs to be done, and that is also reflected in the parents' work, that they now have two major tasks. One is to make sure that the child still goes through the education system with good grades, and the other one is to do all these extra stuff that needs to be done in order to train the child's resilience and creativity and flexibility. So my impression from fieldwork is that parents, middle-class parents, they really do spend a lot of energy on planning around their children's upbringing and learning, even to the extent where parents might quit their jobs. Rarely fathers, so it's gendered also. But I did meet mothers who decided to leave the job market for some years to be able to fully focus on the child's education. And to help them with homework and to plan and organize and all that.
Right. Okay. Now, it was interesting because there is a huge literature on resilient and non-resilient children in different contexts as well. Do you think that these parents also know who are the non-resilient children?
That's a good question. I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I still think that the understanding of resilience, the way I have studied it, is more like some type of ideal. So that also means that when I did my fieldwork, I didn't really try to dig deeper into what could possibly resilience mean in that sense, and what does it not mean. So I'm not sure, and I would be interested to hear, because you have been working more explicitly on resilience and social resilience than I have. So what would your take be on resilience and resilient children? Are there such a thing as resilient children, or is it only an ideal?
Yeah, it was very interesting because, as I said, that I read your article that was about play with a purpose, intensive parenting, education desires, and shifting notions of childhood. And in this article, you have a specific section on resilient children, raising resilient children. And there's a quotation. I am just trying to read a quotation from your article.
Yes.
And it says, the father or the parent says, don't give up, keep trying. And sometimes they say, the child say, I can do it, mommy, I can do it, never give up, right? And sometimes it says, it's too scary, it's too difficult. And then he's being reinforced to keep it up. So in this, there are other quotations as well, but in this passage, the parents are emphasizing on to never give up. So it means that the child, I am just inferring something out of it, because most of the literature in psychology that talk about the resilience, it is very much concerned about the outcome. So somehow the process is undermined, and they said, okay, this person is resilient and this person is non-resilient. So from this quotation, it means if a child is giving up, he may become a non-resilient child. So in a way, it is just
from a psychological
yeah.
perspective.
I mean, if the parents are too much focusing on not to give and keep trying, so if the child is giving up on several things, it means that the parents have concerns about his future.
Yeah.
Because they think that he will not have an adaptive capacity to deal with the challenges. So there seems a binary position of resilient and non-resilient children. Though I do not agree with this binary position because, I am working on social resilience. I see that it is always about go through and get through. You cannot draw a line that this person cannot go through it because he is a give up person. I mean, who gives up easily. And this person, we can count on this person because he never gives up and he can go through. Because there are a lot of evidence in the history that the people who were weak, who were feeble, who were fragile, they become stronger when they were going through. So it means that it is a process that determines the experience of the resilience rather than putting you in a binary position of resilient or non-resilient. But so far, I can understand that still the parents, like in your article, and I know several parents who are very much focused on making their children resilient. So it means that they have a clear description of what is resilient. But at the same time, they're afraid of that their children might be non-resilient if they do not follow up this protocol or this algorithm, so-called, to be a resilient person. So what's your take on it? Is there a binary position you see in resilient and non-resilient children?
So from my perspective, I like you, I don't subscribe to the binary position, but perhaps the parents do. But what I think is that the term resilience, or the concept of resilience, it's so widespread these days, and you hear it in all sorts of contexts, and it can refer to mental resilience or society's resilience to climate crisis or catastrophes or war. And it has become so popular in a sense that it's almost not questioned. It's taken for granted that resilience is a good thing. It's something we should strive for. And that I don't think that is exclusive for parents in Singapore or Beijing or Korea. I feel also here in Sweden or in all sorts of situations, it's often that resilience is seen as something that is evidently good. I have not heard anyone saying that resilience is bad.
Yes.
So when you have this idea that it's out of question that resilience is a good thing we should strive for, I also tend to think that it leads people to not question it very much, what it actually means. What could it mean? What does it mean to them? And so forth. So I think it has become like a mantra. We need to have resilient children, but not so much thoughts on what it actually means and does not mean.
Yeah. Because, it is very interesting that long ago I read a poem that was, its title was "The Art of Losing is Not Hard to Master." I don't know if you have read it or not. So in this poem, the poetess, she talks, I think her name was Elizabeth. She talks a lot about what she has lost. And she has lost her home, her parents, etc. And after every loss, she says, okay, art of losing is not hard to master.
Yeah.
It seems like she's becoming resilient, but in the end, she says, even I lost my smile. And then she says, art of losing is not hard to master. And then this statement at the end, when she lost her smile, it's more sarcastic.
Yeah.
So I'm in resilient, then it makes sense. Okay, if you are resilient, it means that you have also lost several things on the way.
Yeah.
That maybe you are not considering that they would be or should be a part of you.
No, exactly.
Yeah, so that you are right that maybe you are using we are using this word resilience as a mantra. So, so everybody is, I mean, academicians, researchers, they just pick up the resilience as a top-down theoretical construct. They apply it on different settings, and then they see the things the way the lens of resilience show them.
Mm.
So your study is ethnographic study, and usually in ethnographic studies, we have a chance, though you are not explicitly focused on the process of resilience in your studies. No?
Yeah, no, I'm not. It came up as one mantra, you could say, or one goal that parents have for the children, one goal among many others. So that was interesting. So it was a very inductive finding, so to speak.
Yeah, and it is very interesting. Maybe if you will sometimes you will work on resilience thing. There is just significant data you have what they are focusing on. For example, if you will, I was just looking into this part of the article in which I can do it, I cannot do it.
Mm.
Do not give up. It is difficult. It is scary. There are a lot of words. I mean,
Yeah,
even if we can choose the keywords from it, understand that what the concept of resilience means to these parents. But on the same way, I also feel that if you you push a child never give up, then he thinks or she thinks giving up is not a normal thing.
Yeah,
and this is also a beginning of putting too much stress on your brain. That is here comes a question that is more about a comparison.
Yes.
How do you see Swedish parenting different than the Singaporean parents in this context?
I think some of these tendencies are here too.
Such as?
It's not that I hear many parents talk explicitly about resilience in the same way as they did in Singapore. But I think if related ideas such as well-being and so on, I think parents are concerned about those parts as well, and about having a happy childhood, whatever that is. That was also something that surfaced in the data from Singapore, the idea that a happy childhood also provides resilience. But to plan a happy childhood is still very time consuming for the parents. So I would say that I do think to some extent, or to a large extent, that of course structures pushes us in different directions a little bit. And what these three societies have in common that is not so pronounced here in Sweden yet, at least, is the extremely competitive education system and the norm among middle-class families to buy private education services after school and in weekends. It's at a whole different level, I would say, compared to how it is here, even though you can see tendencies here as well with grades. They give grades earlier now, and emphasizing on results, and policymakers getting nervous because Sweden drops in the PISA ranking. These kind of things can also slowly change change the idea of parents' role and the role of an education.
Very interesting. And okay, now the one last question about this thing. What do you see that either Sweden or Swedish parents will move towards the Singaporean style, or Singaporean parents will move towards Swedish style in future?
So this is very interesting. Thank you for taking up that question. What I can see, it's really a paradox, because in the debate here, not only in Sweden, but in Europe, the debate on education and these kind of international student assessment tests and so forth, they tend to favor the old Asian idea of education. And when they compare to, because these three field sites, Beijing, Seoul, and Singapore, they are all top scorers in PISA and other rankings. So, for example, in Sweden, I know that they have been trying to understand what is it that they are doing that we should do. And a competitive education system, I would say, is one lesson that we need to have more structure. We need to have a slightly more demanding school system and so on. But they really overlook the fact that the policymakers in these three field sites are very worried about the negative aspects of having a too competitive education system. And I mean, in China, they have tried to limit the amount of homework children can be given in school. In Korea, they have tried to limit hours for private tuition services. And in Singapore, they also try to revise the curricula by removing certain mid-year exams and so on, because they believe that this will hamper the creativity and well-being of children. So they actually move in another direction. So they move towards us, and we move toward their direction in a way.
Yeah.
But what I can see, one thing that is quite clear from our data in these three field sites is that although there are attempts on the policy level to ease the pressure on children, it's very difficult to change. Because, for example, what happened when they tried to restrict, let's say, the operation of private tuition services or homework, is that parents with resources, they will not just relax and say, okay, that's great. They will be even more worried and think that, okay, if the education system doesn't make sure that my child knows all these things, I have to make sure that my child knows all these things. And then they try to find other solutions to compensate for the fact that the school might give less homework or have less exams.
Yes.
So it's not so easy to change a mindset in a way, or practices.
Yes, thank you very much. It is very interesting. Well, these were some of the key questions about raising resilient children. And it gives me some sort of idea for future research that how the concept of resilience may be seen in different societies, particularly with reference to parenting. So please think about a bigger project.
Let's do it.
Resilience.
Yeah,
because right. I think it is very interesting, and it is becoming more important now that what we want to give our children. I mean, in the name of resilience, because if the resilience, and this is my opinion, if the resilience will be taken in the same way that the psychology have taught us, then I think we are pushing too much. Pushing our children too much into face something that has not yet happened. And we are preparing we are preparing them for something that they have not yet explored or yet experienced, but we believe that it will come to them. Because all the concept of resilience is just relying on the crisis, adversity, challenges. So we have already taken a position that these things will come into your life in any ways. I said we are not giving him a way to think out of it. Yeah, well, it's just my opinion. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Kristina. It was very interesting discussion with you.
Yes. Thank you.
I will put the link to your article in the description so that people can also read on it.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. See you some other times.
Yes.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.